open up the webinar. Oh, Makai, do you want to click, get that off the screen, that message with the keyboard? That is the Day Cinema keyboard next to you, perhaps? Thank you. So many pop-ups. All right. Okay, folks, I've just opened up the webinar. Just give you a few seconds to connect and join us here. Thanks so much for being here. Welcome in. And here we go. So good morning from Concordia University's fourth space, located on unceded Indigenous lands in Tiohtià:ke, Montreal. At fourth space, every day something happens, and that something is directly linked to the research projects, initiatives, and classroom activities at Concordia University, which leads me to today's event. Welcome to the third Innovation Lab student cohort's presentation on the Fall 2021 challenges. We are streaming to YouTube Live, and I'll pop that into the chat. And we will be taking questions, comments from both that platform as well as from those of you joining us on Zoom. And if anybody comes into the space for a live audience, we'll take your questions as well. Now for the official intro, it's my pleasure to pass it over to Concordia University Research Chair in Maker Culture and Innovation Lab Director, Anne-Louise Davidson. Hi, Anne-Louise.
Hi, Anna. Thank you so much. So welcome to the final presentation of the Innovation Lab Fall Student Cohort. It's exciting today. It reaches the highest moment of anticipation of all of the innovation process. So rapidly, the Innovation Lab at Concordia University was launched in September, in the spring of 2021. And it's an initiative under the portfolio of the Vice Provost of Partnerships and Experiential Learning. She's probably online watching right now, so hello to you. The Innovation Lab is a playground where students work in multidisciplinary teams on ideas brought by industry, community, faculty, or students themselves. The purpose of the lab is to offer a non-competitive, risk-free, failure-positive playground environment where students and partners develop key skills for the 21st century in ways that they could never conceive of in the classroom setting. The lab functions in collaboration with various units within the Concordia University innovation ecosystem and with partners and mentors, internal and external to the university, who work alongside students. Our aim is to use the lab as a springboard to launch students onto their desired paths with an innovative mindset to guide them. This semester, students worked on 4 innovation challenges, designing a mentoring framework for an inclusive hackathon, unofficials, AI for the trade system, and Makerspaces for youth empowerment. They collaborated with partners and mentors from Dawson College, Momentum Labs, Chalet Kent, Lower Canada College, Maku Maku, Data H, I2A2, and they learned how to explore and design solutions to complex problems. One of the key aspects of the Innovation Lab is learning to develop innovation skills so that students can become confident innovators. Our students have taken workshops with Future Ready, or Future Bound at this point, in parallel to the lab experience, during which they improved 8 distinct skills: strategic thinking, critical thinking, creativity, communication, collaboration, networking, prototyping, and leadership. If you're interested in participating in the Innovation Lab as a student, a mentor, a partner, a fellow, or an innovator in residence, or if you have an idea for a challenge, get in touch with us, and we love discussing all forms of innovation. Over to you, Ariel.
Hey, Louise. Hi, so my name is Ariel, and I'm the coordinator at the Innovation Lab since January. And I just wanted to take a moment to thank all the students for all their hard work. They've been working on average about 10 hours a week. And the students include 4 graduate students this semester and 15 undergrads. Altogether, they're coming from all 4 faculties. And they've done such an amazing job. They hadn't worked together before, so a lot of them had to learn how to work together and lean on each other's strengths. Unlike other other courses where you might work together with students and then switch teams, they were with the same team throughout the whole process. So it's quite an intense journey. And I'm really impressed with all the work they've done and so grateful for how much sweat and heart they put into it. So yeah, let's pass it over to the first group, the unofficials. And each team will present for about 10 to 15 minutes.
Thank you, Ariel. Hi, everyone. We're the unofficials. Here's why. I'm going to do that again. Hi, everyone. We're the unofficials. Here's why. All right. The situation, the polluters are winning. Our ecosystems are suffering. Our planet is dying. And corporations, government, and top-level officials are not taking the necessary actions. The status quo is not an option. So we are in a struggle against the status quo of leaving the decision-making to politicians and expecting change to come from others. Institutional inaction has been going on for far too long. Next up is the reality. People are ready for action, people. People are ready for change and want it now because the time is now. And there's an opportunity to mobilize people and show them where their power lies. Through crisis is opportunity. So we want to show people that they can be hopeful for the future of our ecosystems. We want to show people that there's hope to be found in climate action. We want to build hope for the future of the planet through climate action. A better future where climate is not working against us because we are fed up with climate hopelessness and we want to engage people in climate action. Here's where we come in. So the opportunity is to create a foundation that trades in gestures and not money. It's time to redefine what value is because it's more than just money, it's empowerment. So, UNO, short for officials. We have no political, financial, or business affiliations. We exist outside of the status quo, and we focus on a different object of value, gestures. And the big idea of reconnecting individuals to the collective. Okay, think about it. Of course, we all worry about ourselves, but there's a way to take care of yourself in a way that's also good for others. The idea is to transform singular acts of good into a movement that can change the world. That's why we want to build a movement for climate action that centers hope around gestures. Mobilize community, build hope, and reward actions. The mission, the unofficials, exist to empower individuals and build hope through climate actions that benefit everyone.
So now we're going to get more into who exactly we are as unofficials and who we want to join us. So our team were Rachel, Zaina, Luis, and I, along with our mentor Justin Kingsley from Meku Meku, have been working on the project all year, and we're based out of Montreal. So now I'm going to get into who we're trying to reach. We understand that there's different demographics around Montreal, and we're going to need different tactics to get them to join us. So we've started out by breaking it into 2 target user groups, and they're going to differ the approach we try to reach them in. So the first target user group we've named Climate Instigators. They're the hopeful users who might already be interested in not only the subject, but have participated previously in these types of movements and will likely be the easiest ones to attract to the movement. Now we've put it into kind of like a job description, what our target demographic might be for this target user. They could be students who have volunteer experience, have been studying already in this matter. They likely will have an interest in grassroots movements, and they're ready to commit their time. So it's not just going to be on an ad hoc basis. They're going to be really interested in staying involved for the long term. Now onto the target user 2. These are the users who might not already be searching for a cause to support, but will be willing to join us if we go to them. So we need to make sure there's no barriers to participation, and that what we're asking them to do is just easy and basic. So moving on to their profile, they're people who we might want on an ad hoc basis. So we want them to participate in our events or be willing to read up on what we're sharing on our network. They don't need any experience, and we just, once again, need to make sure there's no barriers to entry, so make it as easy as possible for this target group. So how will we achieve this goal? We want to inspire other unofficials. So when people look at our movement, we want them to see incredible positivity despite what's happening in the world. We want this to be almost a relief, and have them feel like they can have a real impact by reading up through our foundation, and really understanding that their small actions can lead to big differences through the power of collective action. And then some of the challenges to consider are really based off of New Age environmentalism, which places the blame on an individual, while consumers simultaneously come to their own realizations that their individual actions may not make the impacts needed to slow the effects of climate change. This can lead to just really nihilistic beliefs, thinking everything's on me, but at the same time, nothing I do is going to make a difference. We just recognize that we're going to need to combat this by placing an emphasis on the power of collective action. An example I recently had in a class, actually, was that if more people start biking, they demand better bike lanes, the government has to put in those longer, better paths. And then with the increased capacity, there'll then be more people who start biking to work. And that is kind of like a feedback loop, showing that one individual's action can make a big impact. So that's the kind of thing we're going to need to tackle and encourage users with. Next up, we want people to earn their way into the unofficials. We want them to do good deeds, and we want them to be really proud of what they're doing. And once they're proud of that, we want them to share so that we can continue to expand our network.
Great. So to make the leap, how we're going to get others to take part in the unofficial movement, Uno really allows people to see that their gestures have real value. We want to provide a platform that's going to connect people with the power to change the world. We're going to do that one action at a time, but collectively, we're going to bring the unofficial's power to you. To do that, we begin here at home in Montreal. There's going to be 2 dimensions for our launch. The first is the physical manifestation of the Uno idea. So, when I think about Montreal, I almost instantly think about our murals in the art that is displayed around our street. To follow this idea of bringing Uno to our users, we want to exhibit the cheerfulness and positivity behind the unofficial's message through their street art. A way in which we can do this is to manifest this hopefulness through a message in a bottle style display around the streets of Montreal of children's hopes for the future of the earth. Also, Montreal is a student city. So we have 4 major universities in Montreal: Concordia University, McGill, Université de Montréal, and l'UQAM. Universities are agoras for unofficials. Every single one of these universities is full of climate instigators. That's why we want to target these universities where there's already a strong desire for change, and that's a way for us to reach as many people as possible. And this is really the key to provide the starting point for the collective power of the unofficials. The second dimension of our launch is the digital campaign. So the idea is to bring local actions with global impacts. We want to create a digital universe that's going to connect people and businesses, build a community, and make transactions with actions rather than money. We want to make sure that our digital campaign succeeds in creating a movement rather than just a moment. So we need to offer something that's going to persist the fading away of social media trends. And our campaign really must stand out from all the other activist groups that exist on social media.
So here's how we are going to achieve our vision. We want to inspire people to act by delivering a multimedia content strategy. This product will provide innovative solutions for daily climate action. The product we are offering on our digital contact is Areas of Impact. We are aiming to provide credible education for the public to make better decisions for themselves and the people around them, thus delivering information such as information on the ecological impacts of our eating habits, the impact of how we dress, and how supporting businesses that are on the right path. We are trying to empower people through their actions, and empowerment comes from learning how to do good by themselves. We want to provide information on how your purchasing power can be used for the benefit of our collective ecosystem. So how will our product stand out from other digital campaigns? We're providing credible information about how individual actions can have a bigger impact, as well as creating a community that is exclusively for climate action. So now, Uno. And finally, we would like to give special thanks to our mentor, Justin Kingsley, for guiding us throughout this journey, and to the Innovation Lab and Concordia University for giving us this opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Uno. That was amazing. So now we'll hand it over to the Youth Empowerment for Makerspaces group.
Hello, my voice is audible?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Youth Empowerment Challenge, first I would welcome to you. And first of all, I would like to thank our partner. We are in partnership with the Saligant, Lower Canada College, Militius Institute of Art, Culture and Technology, and Concordia University. Next, it's a time to introduce my team. I am a Tejas, and I'm doing my graduate in mechanical engineering. We are 5 Concordian in the group. So Leila is the second member of our group. She's doing undergraduate student in a teaching English as a second language with a minor in human relation. Sut is a third member, and she's doing undergraduate in mechanical engineering. Rian is a fourth member, and she's also doing art education. Ahmed is a fifth member, and he's doing quality. Now it's Leila. She will talking what is Makers and what about challenge.
So picture this, you're teaching a history lesson to a grade 4 class, a lesson you honestly thought would go extremely well and that it would gain their interest. However, you notice that a few students are unable to concentrate. They might be falling asleep or might simply just be uninterested and bored. It might not even be that the workbook features boring homework, but maybe it's the fact that this class isn't as interesting, interactive, fun, and stimulating as it could be. Perhaps the student just needs an extra push to do something creative, to create something hands-on. So now, what is a makerspace, you might ask? So the purpose of makerspaces is to give access to emerging disruptive technologies, as well as interdisciplinary projects where people are able to engage in individual and collaborative projects. For students, makerspaces are able to give them motivation, but can even aid them to become innovators and entrepreneurs. Makerspaces can be found in so many different areas, such as schools, universities, colleges, libraries, museums, and even community centers. Within makerspaces, maker culture takes place, which embodies DIY subcultures, aka doing it yourself. People there can create their own inventions, or redesign their items through 3D printing, laser cutters, etc. So now about the challenge. So our main focus was how to make learning more accessible, student-centered, engaging as possible for all students. As a team, when we started this challenge, we wanted to be sure that we were all on the same team and on the same page and understood the challenge the same way. And thus we came up with a description of the challenge. About the challenge. So our challenge proposes to bring students and community partners together to design activities that help the youth from underrepresented groups to become empowered through engaging in makerspaces. We then realized the two main issues were that classrooms were not filled with accessible learning activities, about the problem statement, and thus there was not enough cost-effective classrooms interactions. These two issues, alongside closed mindset and stereotypes, leads to the decrease in interest of bright, intellectual, energetic, and even enthusiastic students. So why does youth empowerment in STEM matter so much? It is because of this shocking statistic. In universities, only approximately 18% of STEM undergraduates are women. Thus, our goal within this makerspace was to have more student-centered classroom within which students were able to become part of the creative process and thus become creative thinkers, but also combat the systemic inequality that deprives these young minds of opportunities and experiences to progress and reach their full potential. So now on to the types of data collected.
The data we collected from our empathy phase ended up matching what we had suggested as our problem statement. On our path to collect more information, we were lucky to get input by sending out surveys to teachers. Those who responded taught mainly in elementary schools, and personally, even my older sister helped us out a lot in a conversation about these struggles facing teachers and students today. Second, we looked at what was out in the open in science museums and had the opportunity to go see what a makerspace physically looks like at an open house in Chalet-Kent. We found them very fun and enlightening to what the types of activities we would be making, but had to come to terms that some of them would be a little bit out of the league of what we were going for. Third, we were wonderfully greeted by our mentors, Alec, Anne-Louise, and Carl-André. We had 2 team members who were able to interview lab coordinators and gain their insights, and we met with them regularly. Finally, we looked at journal articles to help base our challenge on more concrete grounds. They helped provide context on how we wrote and chose the activities, while also broadening our understanding of the stigmas and stereotypes against women and BIPOCs in STEM. Moving on. From surveys we sent to the teachers, we found that they struggle most with accommodating learners of different academic levels, finding resources for activities, the imbalanced ratio, which is approximately 25 students for 1 teacher, and maintaining a healthy learning environment when students may have personal and social problems that have to be dealt with. We also asked what students struggle with in classes, and the most common answers were about their attention spans, sitting still and listening to instructions, as well as teamwork and their social skills with other students. Next slide, please. We also asked teachers if they had any sort of reward systems, as we believed that students' engagement would increase due to some other positive reinforcement. Outside of classroom settings, this could be something like rewarding good behavior with screen time or extra time to participate in leisure activities. 66% of teachers surveyed would use some sort of reward system as a motivation for students' proper behavior. However, 33% were against it, as they believed it creates a hostile competitive environment against their peers, only rewarding the motivated and fast learners. While competition may be healthy and encourage some students to do better, those who are struggling with behavioral problems or learning difficulties will find it harder to participate in more competitive learning environments. Most of the time, students are either finding STEM too confusing. They could be bored, not be able to afford it, or question if it is for them in the first place. The leading factor in all this could be chalked down to the lack of aspiration and motivation. From studies, we asked about how much of an impact one's family can have, and we found that occasionally they were discouraged about going into STEM. Most times, no family members had previously attended college or were working in a STEM field, so an external push towards these types of careers was almost non-existent. In rural areas, there is a disadvantage for industrial or scientific careers because they do not have the infrastructure for technology that STEM jobs rely on. This means that if they want to pursue a STEM career, they will have to move away from everything like family, friends, familiarity, and comfort. Finally, some high schools did not even encourage choosing a career early by not having access or goals to offer classes needed for STEM fields in college. This ensures that students who want to become future STEM workers would be forced to take higher mathematics and prerequisites in college or university, which means an increase in the price and unfortunately could lead to a lack of interest and enrollment.
From the surveys we conducted, as well as journal reviews, we found that children are motivated when teachers would give constructive feedback, positive reinforcement, and just have a kind attitude. We also found that certain methods of learning also help motivate students, such as interactive hands-on activities, peer teaching, relating the teaching content to real-world experiences and the benefits it has, having a variety of teaching techniques to accommodate all types of learners, and having an expert in the field the students could approach with any questions they may have.
From the exploration phase and after we have refined our problem statement, we moved on to the ideation phase, which all our creative juices came flowing. We generated several ideas about projects or activities that they can carry out. And as you see, we had to cut down few of them due to financial implications or due to a high complexity level. Then we voted for the highest two activities according to the criteria that we set, which are, in short, do something meaningful in a playful way. And then we had to choose by the end two activities, which are the Buzzwire Game, focuses on the E for engineering in the STEM world, and the Color Dye Plant, which focuses on the S for science in the STEM world. So first is the Buzzwire Game. We are aiming for a group age from 14 to 16 years old, and the expected duration to carry out this project is about 6 hours. But of course, that depends on the number of people with the team or the knowledge level they have. And the related topics for this project are electrical circuits, engineering, sensors, and design. Designing is basically for the main conductor here. And the learning objectives are the basic electrical circuit knowledge, creativity in design, sensors working principle, and getting familiar with the tools used in the makerspace, like the driller, the soldering iron, and etc. So now I will share the Instructables link that we have created, which is just like, as the name suggests, is about instructions on how to create this game step by step. So we are about 700 views in just 2 days. And here's the cover page. Moving on to the components and the tools they can use. We have a snapshot for all the components used, and all the components are listed down here. Some of the materials we have suggested and alternatives that they can find at home. Like, for example, the SiC conductor wire, we are suggesting to use a metal clothes hanger wrapped around a normal electrical circuit, which will do mostly the same performance. And then the steps, assembling the board, and then moving on to all the steps, the connections, and sticking everything together. Here's a short demo about how it works. Basically, the whole idea is to move this stick from the beginning till the end with the least amount of touches. And now if they think that this is too basic for them, or they want to be more advanced in the engineering field or the electrical field, to be specific, we are suggesting some extension ideas that they can do. And these ideas including using an Arduino board with some specific programming commands to do something, or inserting bigger obstacles in the conductor, or using a Makey board or a microbit board.
Next, we have the Panta Activity. We understand that from a teacher's perspective, they might not be entirely comfortable with exploring the maker culture themselves or have the facilities for it. So we've decided to start from a science experiment, which has a high potential where it could be expanded into a maker activity. An activity had to be carefully selected, which can pique the curiosity of minorities in STEM and make sure that activities we create are not seen as typical engineering projects that are too intimidating to even start on. In general, this activity is targeted towards 9 to 13-year-olds, and the goal is to learn about biology and botany. Essentially, we'll be teaching them how plants transport water from the roots to the petals through capillary action through the use of dyes to help visualize where the water goes. Now on to the tools and materials. For materials required for this activity, first we'll need white flowers, some sort of container that can hold up the flower and not tip. We use plastic bottles for our prototype. We also need scissors for cutting the stem, food dye, and water. So the steps are as follows. First, we need to cut the stems at a 45-degree angle to maximize the exposure of the stem to the water. Then you add water to the container as well as 3 to 5 drops of dye. And after that, you place the flower into the bottle. Then we should check back on the flower after certain intervals, and we'd recommend 3 to 7 days. Optionally, you can change water for freshness and even change the dye's colors to see how the petals change color as well. So here are the process pictures. We tested this experiment on different flowers and in 2 different conditions, whether or not we rewatered them on the 3rd day. We found that the daisies absorbed the least amount of coloring, most likely because there are so many stems and petals, so the water absorption rate is slower, while the peony on the left had the most drastic color change. And rewatering did not have any effects on the color saturation on the petals. So to turn this from a science experiment to a maker activity, we suggested some extension activities, such as recording the entire process and turning it into a stop motion video where students could play around with the film editing software. And we also have activities involving an Arduino microcontroller by finding out how much water is absorbed per day on average with a water sensor. We can also approximate how much dye is absorbed into the petals through that and find out when to rewater the flowers. Another idea would be to use a conductive foam where water could be weighed for the same outcome to see when the plant has to be rewatered. Next slide, please. Here's our activity on the Instructables website. First, we have a prototype right below our title with the 3 flowers to show what to expect. Then you scroll down to the introduction, materials, and steps, all with visual aid. After that, we have a close-up of each flower at the end of our testing phase and some suggested extension activities, and at the bottom, a comment section.
Well, in the conclusion, carried out the design activity, which helped the youth will include more comfortable about STM career and will help them to decide what the career path to embark on based on true knowledge. The aim of each activity was to teach specific technical knowledge, but most important is for them to test their passion and explore what they can taking out from them. The teachers are also more prone to be belong to able to add this instructable lesson into their classroom, as well as it is more easier and more engaging. We are sincerely thankful to our partner and also our mentor and for giving this opportunity. And if you have any question, you can contact us on this.
Thank you so much. That was great. So I did forget to mention at the beginning, actually, that some of the groups have continued work that other students were doing in the summer, or they maybe take a different direction. And I just wanted to, thought that it was important to mention that there's been continuity thanks to the mentors continuing to work with students, different students. And now I'm going to hand this over to the AI Trade Systems group.
Yeah, share my screen. This. Perfect. Cool. So we'll let the Chaitra start.
Yeah, do you just want to go to present mode?
I'm not in present. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. It's over here. Are you?
Perfect.
Are you good? Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our final presentation regarding the AI for Trade Systems Challenge. So a little bit about us. We are a team of diverse individuals with backgrounds in mathematics, finance, and technology. So we'll start off by a general introduction, followed by a thorough analysis of the gambling phenomenon and strategic investment, and we'll end with a brief conclusion. So looking at the general idea of the challenge, we were faced with many topics which each of us had some prior experience with. This is coding, AI, and mathematics. But now we had to figure out how to combine these topics for one final project. So initially we struggled trying to come up with a sophisticated, complex AI algorithm. This led us to feel overwhelmed, as stressed, as we weren't really using our resources to the best of its ability, and we weren't incorporating innovation, which is the essence of this challenge. So what we did was we took a step back, we reevaluated and remodeled the project to try to take advantage of our personal strengths and bring a new innovative approach to this challenge. So we transitioned from a purely mathematical approach to a more human approach. So we were trying to see how human emotions and how humans contribute to this mathematical phenomena. So essentially, we want to develop a problem relating to the audience. That is a problem which individuals are contributing to without even realizing it. I'll now pass it on to Anastasia.
Thank you. Our analysis of the problem started by following the alert of many economists saying that equity markets have climbed more than 80% since the crash of March 2020. This is what can be first sign of investors' euphoria and excitement that may result in a stock market bubble. The high level of marketability caused by growing popularity of social media like Reddit and trading apps like Robinhood attracted many amateur investors and day traders who take fast decisions and actively share their investment advice, which is not necessarily good, but makes investment practices a source of a big win rather than real value. Hence, the prices of the stocks go up as a result of unrealistic expectations about the company that short-term investors believe in. And in addition, large-cap financial institutions are prone to market manipulations that worsen the position of individual investors through control of large amounts of equity and high-frequency trading, what makes us to believe that individuals are playing a zero-sum game. But instead of pointing the finger at large financial institutions, we wanted to turn the eyes on ourselves. Usually we yield to injustice caused by larger players without really investigating how we, individuals, contribute to those problems. And now let's talk about gambling phenomenon. This phenomenon is characterized by the market manipulation activities that encourage unexperienced investors, which we call gamblers, to artificially inflate or deflate the price of securities. For example, pump and dump scam occurs when misleading statements about a company are shared on social networks or other forms of media, and all those buyers attracted by the false information artificially inflate the stock. This behavior can be explained by incompetence that affects investors' desire to earn substantial amount of money in extremely short period of time. The danger is that, as humans, we tend to fall into the trap of behavioral biases that makes us think we are smarter than we actually are. And when people believe they understand stock market patterns, most of the time they fool themselves, what leads to the loss of their own money. And in the light of this problem, we also can note that momentum-sensitive computerized algorithms that are currently raising doubts about traditional concepts of how markets should work underestimate the importance of value investing. As a consequence, a fair price of a stock may exist, but high-frequency traders are not seeking fair prices. They are focused solely on immediate profit. And now I pass it on Philip.
Thank you, Anastasia. So to present this phenomenon, we built an AI trading bot that will trade money on the financial market. This way, we want to outline the complexity and difficulty of trading through a bot or simply trading. I will be presented in 4 parts. First, what are we trying to predict? How do we do that? Did it actually work? And finally, what have we learned from it? So what we're trying to predict is the movement of the stock price 5 days from now. I know it sounds really ambitious, but it might be the thing that we're trying to do ourselves. So how do we do that? To help us doing that, we made use of an algorithm called HD Boost, in which it was classifying those 3 signals: buy, hold, and sell. The explanation of the algorithm itself will be really surface, as the full understanding requires prior knowledge about other machine learning concepts. As you see on the graph, we plotted 2 features against our signal. As you might see, we seem to be able to cluster pretty easily the signal given the value of the feature. But in real life, it's pretty more messy than this. Onto the classifier. XGBoost is in the family of the decision tree. For the sake of the example, we will explain the concept of the tree instead of the XGBoost. A decision tree make a decision through multiple conditional tests and looks for the features as yesterday's stock return that separate the best the signal, that separate best the signals. As you see, those green boxes are the leaf nodes, which represent a class label that is the decision taking after computing all of the attributes. We can see that a RSI with a value higher than 70 is able to separate the data set in a way that we have 100 cell signals, which this feature seems fine to give us a bias signals. Contrary. Cell signals. So we turn our model on a 5-year period and test it on a 1-year period with a stock that have not been volatile over that same exact period. And we split the data set into a time series format, which makes each stock's returns dependent on each other. Also, momentum indicators or technical analysis tool used to determine the strength or weaknesses of a stock price. Momentum measure the rate or the rate of the rise or the fall of the stock price. As you see here, the RSI indicator with value higher than 70 is called overbought, which means that we expect the stock price to decrease in the next couple of days because it has been overbought. So that was one of the indicators that we've used to help us define patterns in finding the movement of the stock price in 5 days. So what have been the difficulty from it? Being able to model the phenomenon requires the ability to find patterns and extract information out of it. And the stock market is really difficult to model due to the nature of it. As the stock market brings buyers and sellers together and act as a market for the share of those stocks. Uncertainty and imprevisibility is what governs it. The efficient market hypothesis is a hypothesis in financial economics that states that asset prices reflects all available information. A direct implication is that it is impossible to beat the market consistently on a risk-adjusted basis, since market price should only react to new information. And the third difficulty, the irrational exuberance, which is a non-founded market optimism and lacks a real foundation of fundamental valuation. And it rests on psychological factors. So when we might think that it will go down, it will keep climbing up, as Anastasia said, with the psychology of the investors. So what is the performance of our model? First, we look at the confusion matrix, and what do we want to minimize with our model is having buy signals when we should instead sell the stocks. And 36 times we bought when we should have sold, which led to important losses. On the other hand, for the accuracy, after training our model in a 5-year period, we've been able to get a 41.5% accuracy on unseen data. So what's our verdict? We backtested on the 2019 and 2020 period, and we arrived with a loss of $13,000 out of a 1-year period. As you can see in the graph, those are all of the decisions of the algorithm. On the other hand, when you backtest this into a more bullish market, which was in 2020, we have been able to get a profit of $25,000. We know that algorithm behave differently given the data set, the algorithm, or the stocks itself. So in conclusion, if our model can't even find patterns in the data, do you still believe you can? And as Socrates once said, the only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing. So now, knowing that we might not be able to find patterns and that we actually know nothing about this, we want to present an alternative to this way of investing. And this alternative will be represented by another model. So this is strategic investment, and I will let Shayla.
Thank you, Philip. So to compare gambling and strategic investing, both involve risking capital in the hopes of making a profit. In both gambling and investing and strategic investing, a key principle is to minimize risk while maximizing reward. However, there are several major differences. Gambling is a time-bound event, and once the game is over, One's opportunity to profit has come or gone, and you either have won or lost your capital. Strategic investing, however, is time rewarding since the rise in stock value and dividend payment give you profit as long as you hold onto your company's stock. When betting on your pure gambling activity, there are no loss mitigation strategies. On the other hand, setting stop losses on your stock investment is a simple way to avoid undue risk. If your stock drops 10% below its purchase price, you have the opportunity to sell that stock to someone else and still retain 90% of your risk capital. Last but not least is the amount of information in hand. Gambling has no quantifiable information, whereas strategic investing has access to financial ratios and companies' earning. And now I pass it on to Chaitra.
Thank you, Sheila. So we'll now look at the second model. This will include looking at the portfolio optimization theory, followed by the reasoning behind why we chose these particular stocks and the strategy that we used. So the idea behind the modern portfolio theory is the saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket. This is because if someone drops the basket or if something happens to it, your eggs are at high risk and your eggs are all likely to break at the same time. This is the same situation with stocks. If you invest in only one type of stock or one industry, you're more likely to be adversely affected by something negative in this industry. Therefore, we use the modern portfolio theory, which allows you to maximize your returns within a level of risk using the process of diversification. This allows you to be invested in many fields, which leads your overall risk to be reduced and allows you to receive the optimal combination of stocks. An important component of this theory is the efficient frontier. For a visual image of this, you can look at the graph and you can see the efficient frontier plotted on the curve above point P. And this frontier essentially shows the best combinations of stocks available with the highest return for a certain level of risk. So the stocks that we chose in this model were due to many important factors, some of the most vital being their past performance, if they offer sufficient diversification, and if they have a positive future outlook. I'll now pass it on to Terrence.
So 3 methods were used while analyzing our portfolio: the mean variance optimization, the risk parity method, and the mean conditional value at risk. The analysis was done on data ranging from 2018 to 2019, which generated allocations for share amounts and its expected yearly return. We then placed our capital using each method for the year 2020 and on average observed a return between 15 to 20% of our total portfolio. So about the mean variance optimization, essentially, the goal of it is to seek to minimize the risk amongst the chosen stocks, given an investor's risk aversion and expected return by testing all combinations of stock weights that give the smallest spread of data. And next slide. The assumptions that this model has is 3. The first one is that it's a one period market, meaning that it's only concerned about 2 states, meaning the beginning and the end, not what lies in between. The second assumption is that the expected return and the variance is identical, meaning the spread of data and the average is the same. The third assumption is that the covariance is 0, meaning all stocks are uncorrelated. Next slide. Now about the hierarchical risk parity. Next slide. This slide essentially doesn't take returns into account. The goal is to create a portfolio in which every asset contributes equally to total risk. Next slide. The first step to calculating this method is the tree clustering. And essentially, the first step is to create a correlation matrix where each value is the distance between one stock and another. The smaller the distance value, the higher the correlation. We then form a cluster by combining the 2 stocks for which the distance is the smallest and reevaluate the distance of that cluster with all the other elements. This process is repeated until no more elements are able to cluster together. We then form a linkage matrix, which is a step-by-step demonstration of the clustering and its values. The next step following the tree clustering is the recursive bisection. And then essentially, we re-explore the cluster trees from the inverse direction, meaning from top to bottom. And each time a cluster is segmented, their weights are reevaluated based on the stock's volatility. Now about the mean conditional value at risk, essentially this method is to compute the expected loss in case of the worst case scenario happens. And so thus, this strategic investment outperformed the algo trading in terms of consumer-based investing. Now I'm going to pass it on back to Chaito.
Thank you, Terrence. So in conclusion, we wanted to showcase a phenomenon which could possibly impact the current market situation that we're facing. We showed this with the use of a model and how AI could adversely impact it. Consequently, we proved that strategic investing is a more beneficial method for individual investors as consumer-based investing is better suited for them. So we would just like to take a moment to thank everyone at the Innovation Lab for this amazing opportunity. We'd also like to thank Diego, Celso, and Evandro for everything they've taught us over the past couple months. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I loved how different that was from the previous AI challenge. And yet it's like this similar subject. So yeah, great job. And the last team that we'll be presenting is also one that was continuing from the last term, mentoring an inclusive hackathon. Over to you.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Natasha and I'll be introducing this challenge. So the Innovation Lab asked us to mentor an inclusive hackathon. So my teammates and I, Masood, Kelly, Emma, Zara, and I were asked to collaborate on a challenge in which we had to create an inclusive hackathon, which created a safe, welcoming environment to groups that are underrepresented in the science, technology, engineering, and medicine/math field, or STEM for short. We worked on creating a 2-week mentorship framework that was available from individuals from late high school to undergraduate students in university. And these individuals had little robotics knowledge. So brainstorming as a group was probably the most important part of this process, and it occurred at every step of our journey. So in order to create a proper mentorship framework, we spent time researching areas of interest. We interviewed individuals who've had experiences in being visible minorities in STEM. And we've had several discussions with our mentors on how to piece this information all together. We did this while keeping inclusion, diversity, and a strong STEM identity for participants at the forefront. So we'll start this presentation off by explaining problems visible minorities face in STEM, and then we'll present our ideas on how to address these problems through a mentorship framework. So underrepresented groups, Emma, can you change the slide, please? Oh, sorry about that. All right, so underrepresented groups, people of color, people in the LGBTQ community, and women, much more, make up less of the STEM population respective to their makeup in the general population. They are less likely to persist in the STEM field. STEM activities are not always readily accessible or welcoming to everyone. For example, in this graph, we see that only 22% of undergraduate students in STEM are women, which is below the national Canadian average of only 24%. Additionally, we see that while the percentage of white, Black, and Latinx students entering STEM are about the same, Black and Latinx students are much more likely to switch out of STEM or drop out of school altogether compared to their white counterparts who have higher rates of persistence. So the stats on the previous 2 slides show 2 problem areas that minorities face in the STEM field. The first is possible discrimination, which has led to decreased interest in entering STEM. And the second is a decreased chance of continuing STEM. Previous research has led us to develop a problem statement that incorporates the results of our findings. Traditional hackathon structures do not typically support inclusivity, diversity, and the long-term pursuit of STEM fields. So key issues include a product-oriented approach over a process-oriented approach, and a lack of defined mentorship for the target audience. And though some mentorship models have been developed, there is a gap in the transportability of these schemas to different contexts in which core features address inclusivity, diversity, all while nurturing the development of creative confidence. So due to these limitations in the STEM field, visible minorities have been shown to have apprehensions about entering STEM, a lack of role models in the field, and a lower retention rate in the STEM field.
We identified 3 main problems. The first one being that students have apprehensions about entering STEM. We hope that in the future, students will feel equipped and ready to tackle on the field of STEM. To attempt to tackle this problem, we, through our mentorship program, we identified 3 different possible solutions, which is providing resources, spreading knowledge about STEM, and hands-on learning. So primarily we have providing resources, and through this we thought of creating a resource playbook, which would curate some good points of entry. We also identified through our interviews that hands-on learning was a very vital facet. Peer-to-peer collaboration, autonomous learning, and a maker-centered approach is key for hands-on learning. And through low-cost parts for robotics and using a multi-level challenge, students may receive the hands-on learning experience that they need. We also have spreading knowledge about STEM because many students don't exactly know what STEM is. We can do this through speaking to community leaders, social media networking, and having good models in STEM. In interviews, research mentored students describe mentors as colleagues who gave them opportunities to grow and examples to look up to. Students valued mentors with whom they identified with shared values as well as demographic similarity. Which leads us to our second problem, which is the lack of role models in STEM. Currently, students lack role models who can offer them guidance and support, and we hope that in the future, students will have role models who inspire them and who they can also see shared components of themselves in. Through this, we identified 4 different ways to solve this through mentorship models, mentor training, having role models, and creating a community. So primarily for mentorship models, we discovered that combining models and taking the best part out of each model would be the best way to do so. And having role models is very important. We identified our need for recruiting representative mentors, and having diverse volunteer mentors is what we aspire to have in this mentorship program. Once recruiting the mentors, there's also the need for mentor training. We thought of different ways to do this through online anti-discrimination training, scenario intervention, and creating a mentorship playbook, as well as internal training. To create necessary connections, creating a community is very important. We hope for a safe and inclusive environment. To create a community, we can also do so through physical or a digital meeting space. This could be the hackathon space in and of itself, as well as Discord or other communication platforms, as well as social media pages. Students had said that the best mentorships were organic in nature and bi-directional, with both the students and the mentors reaching out, which is why social media pages would be a great way to do it.
Last but not least, we have the challenge of student retention in STEM. Currently, students may start in STEM, but do not always stay in STEM. Our ideal situation is where students don't feel any boundaries to continue in STEM fields should they desire this path. Through doing some research and interviews, we came with some possible solutions to address this problem. We thought of encouraging perseverance, providing resources to the students, making STEM fun, and helping students to build scientific identities. Our first solution is to encourage perseverance. To achieve this, first we suggest providing psychological and emotional support to the students. Second, there's autonomous learning with available support, which is an approach to learning where students hold the power to regulate and control their learning activities. Providing the option to speak to and get connected to a mentor is also another important solution. During a hackathon, encouragement from the mentors and a positive atmosphere could lead to higher perseverance rates. Next, we thought of providing resources to encourage student retention in STEM. Designing a resource quiz so that individuals can find resources suited to their level of knowledge can help the students find where to start. From there, students can follow the provided links or refer to other resources listed in a curated resource playbook. Moreover, whenever the students need some help, mentors are there for them to provide strategies to get unstuck. Making STEM fun is another effective solution. Primarily, mentors should focus on process over progress. For example, doing some activities beyond assessment in positive upbeat environment could make a hackathon event even more fun. Students can also do culture-infused activities or build robots from household items. As a follow-up project, mentors can encourage students to complete an instructed free online activity at home. Last but not least, we can help students build their scientific identities to ensure their retention in STEM. By making friends within the community and getting connected with local mentors, students can build their network of people to get lots of help and support. Nurturing active participation is another critical solution to tackle this challenge. Other solutions include a student portal with monthly follow-up activities and scientific newsletters managed by the students. While thinking about the ideal mentor, we came to the conclusion that we were asking for the impossible because no one person is perfect and is equipped with every skill needed for this challenge. We came up with 4 personas, each with their unique set of skills. Together, they constitute what the perfect mentor would look like. First, we have Janet, who is 37 years old and is a professor of engineering. She has good technical skills and knows a lot about STEM. She enjoys teaching and spreading knowledge about STEM and robotics. Second, we have Iako, a 50-year-old professor of sociology. Iako is an expert on how to include and encourage underrepresented groups. They make everyone feel welcome with their positive and outgoing personality. Although they have no experience in STEM, Iako has gone through anti-discrimination trainings and knows how to foster an inclusive environment. We have Tyler, a 28-year-old filmmaker who does not have a degree in STEM, but has a great interest in the field. Tyler loves to tinker and create. He is enthusiastic about robotics and encouraging others to initiate and pursue STEM. Lastly, we have Aisha, a 20-year-old undergrad engineering student studying at Concordia. She aspires to work in the field of developing innovative medical devices. Unfortunately, she is familiar with stereotypes in STEM, but hopes to use this knowledge to prevent these stereotypes from continuing.
By receiving support from the mentors and being involved in hackathon activity, a student feels safe and included, have the creating confidence to hack collaboratively, manage apprehension about robotics and STEM in general, have an overall positive experience. The mentors can help empower students to become confident creators while also supporting their learning robotics and STEM topics. During the hackathon, mentors can provide a student with different learning activities such as mini workshops that complement a common challenge that everyone participates in. Robotics STEM learning activity with different level of complexity is one of our identified approaches for allowing for a diverse set of participant background in an inclusive hackathon. For example, because a student will have some students will have different level of knowledge in robotics and the other will have no experience at all. We think it's important that everyone share a common experience so that the core challenge can be done by all, but there should be also opportunity to further knowledge and skill with complementary activity. We have identified that hackathon challenges and supporting activity need to be interesting, cost-effective, and trigger creativity. Here are some ideas for supporting hackathon activity that allow for different learning levels. Level 0, no code. Mentor could instruct a student with the basic of logic gates. Logic gates are small digital electronic devices that perform a simple function. Then a student combine logic gates and create more complex function with those basic units. From this, they can create their own robot, such as a line follower robot, without need for coding. Level 1, low code. Mentor could instruct a student with the basics of programming, and then a student can modify the code to design a simple robot. For example, a student and mentor can use Arduino, which is very hackable. Arduino is open source hardware that is accessible and cost-effective with tons of training resources. Further challenges that are more open-ended could also be provided to trigger creativity and interest in robotics. Ideally, all hackathon mentorship activity would lead to post-hackathon learning and an increased interest in STEM and robotics among the participants.
So in order to address our three overarching problems, which were apprehensions about entering STEM, the lack of role models, and the lack of student retention, we essentially imagined what this collaborative space for our ideal hackathon event would look like. And so here's a visual prototype of what we came up with. We envision an upbeat, positive, encouraging, and supportive atmosphere. Here, peer-to-peer collaboration is encouraged between the students as they work together to build the robots. And likewise, peer-mentor relationships are fostered as our mentors circulate between the tables. Students also have the opportunity to connect with mentors, be supported by them, and develop their own scientific identities. Further, post-hackathon event, we think that it'd be important to receive student feedback on the event, and that this way we can implement this feedback into furthering and improving future hackathon experiences. So one simple and efficient method that we can conduct these surveys is through utilizing the platform of Google Forms. Another key aspect post-hackathon would be to encourage student perseverance in STEM. So we don't want our hackathon essentially to be something that students go to once and it has no lasting impact. Instead, our goal is to be a catalyst for impacting the next generation of autonomous, persistent STEM learners. And one solution that we came up with was for students to be able to follow up through this digital community using social media platforms such as Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, where students can stay informed about local robotics events, learn more about various mentors, and get some quick tips on various topics, get connected to our local online curated library of resources as well. And so lastly, our team of innovators would like to leave you all in this final thought. And it's a thought that's currently a goal, but that one day we hope is a living reality. And it's best summarized in this quote from Nelly Barrero. We want a culture that is inclusive of everything and where everyone who joins feels they have opportunities to succeed and grow. So last but not least, we'd like to acknowledge and extend our sincerest thanks to the Innovation Lab at Concordia, who gave us this space and challenged us to delve into discovery, to our dedicated mentors who gave us guidance while also giving us the creative freedom to explore, and lastly, to our wonderful interviewees who shared their stories with us and also for all their insights. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
Thanks so much. So that concludes all the 4 presentations, and the floor is open for questions. You can use the chat, or I believe you can even raise your hand and use a microphone.
I see there are some questions in the chat. So Geneviève Lamarche has a first question for the Makerspace group. The activities proposed, what age group are they designed for? What Makerspace contexts are they designed for? And she thinks that a library could probably not do the Buzzwire game. So do you want to talk a little bit about
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
So the question is that she's asking for what age group the activities are designed for and for what Makerspace context.
It depends on the activity, but since you are talking about the Buzzwire game, we are aiming for 14 to 16 years old to create the activity, but of course it's open to play with any age after that. And it can be carried at any makerspace, or sometimes I even mentioned that we have some alternatives in order to do it at home for those who don't have access to a makerspace. And as Layla mentioned previously, the makerspace can be found in schools, museums, yeah, maybe some kind of libraries.
So Ahmed, do you think that it would be preferable in a makerspace where indeed some construction can happen? Because I remember you had to use some handsaws and a lot of glue. So I wonder, do you have some suggestions about which context? A community makerspace maybe, or?
Actually, yes, makerspace would be preferably, of course, to make it like as perfect as it should be. That's the main thing, but we are aiming to reach out as many students as we can. So that's why we had some alternatives on the materials and even the components, even the tools that we use, such as the glowing, the driller, and etc. In the instructables, we have some kind of alternatives for a material so that they have some alternatives for the tools in order not to do it in the makerspace. Did I answer it right?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, that's good. There's another question for the hackathon group. And that was from Natalie Duponcel, who says, I like that you have chosen this complex topic, as it's not an easy one to tackle. I agree that students need support, and you make many good suggestions. I wonder, how might practices in STEM be changed to be more inclusive rather than expecting those excluded to have to deal with the current exclusionary practices?
I could take this one if you guys are okay with it. So one thing that we were talking about was culture-infused challenges, which I thought was really interesting. So the activities you do can be from your background. If there's something that's close to home, our mentors could take the time to try and build a robot or something that connects with the person's culture, the person's ethnicity. Another thing that was big for us was making activities from things that you could find at home, like recycled materials, old CDs, old bottles. So this way you don't really have to have any amount of money to be part of this activity. And those were the big two ways that everyone could really be included. Does anyone from the hackathon group have anything to add?
That was a good answer. Thank you, Tash. Are there any other questions? You can ask questions between each other as well. We'll tolerate 10 seconds of silence. It's okay. Waiting for
I could ask a
questions.
question. So the challenges started as just like a kind of like a one pager. I'd be curious if anyone would like to share how did the experience compare to what you initially expected?
Go for it. No, it's on. Is this thing on? Yes.
Is this thing on? Oh, it is. I have something to say. I absolutely thought that this was a competition. And I thought that I was going to win some more money if we won. So I really had that. There was like a real, when I came to understand that we weren't competing, the flow of innovation and learning actually really came through. That pressure that I had put on myself wasn't really helping, and I didn't realize what a role it had in my participation with the innovation lab. So we all won.
You're right. We definitely all won. But this is interesting because it opens, in a certain way, a whole discussion about, should success be competitive, and would we ever make leaps forward if innovation was about competition? And if you think about the pressures that you put on yourself when you're in a competition as opposed to when you're in a collaboration, and that that there might be several iterations needed, it completely changes. Did everybody else come in with this idea that there was a competition happening and I missed it? No, we're all good. Okay, everybody else was coming in.
Go ahead, Marion. I think you had your hand up for a couple
Yeah, I did. I just want to say that I really found that even though this was a lab, the one thing that I really wanted to do for it was meet new people and get like different perspectives from everybody coming in from different places, because I've been like very secluded, especially in the past like 2 years. So being able to branch out and go from my own little world and going to different places, even if it was just especially through online communications, was really rewarding. Like, even though everything was online, it's still like the whole thing about innovation is that you keep adapting, you keep moving forward about everything. So the fact that we could still do everything and probably even, I wouldn't say better because I don't have context for what it would have been like had we done it in person. But I do find that the ability to like meet more often and get together this much really helped like solidify a good project and like collaboration with each other.
Amazing.
Thank
I'm
you,
so glad to
Marianne.
hear that.
Great to hear. Leila, you have your hand up?
Yeah, so just to add on to what Marianne said, I completely agree since we're both in the same team. I really feel like I came in so stressed just because I did not know what the final product would be. I was like, okay, like I see where this could go, but I don't know where we can actually make that thing go. So from each step, like in the actual process, I was like always questioning myself, questioning like what I have. Am I like, is my project good enough? Is it what it's required? Can I have some feedback? I was really dependent on the feedback. And I feel like if I were to start this whole like challenge again, I would be more confident in my own abilities as well as my teammates, just because we're all learning in this process. But I really feel like our overall like project, and I feel like for the others as well, we really did an amazing job in the few months that we did have. And I feel like we all came out with like a different perspective. We all came out with a different like project, whether it be for like the Makerspace as well. I feel like I had no idea what a Makerspace was just to begin with, and what it came up with, and the instructables, which are lessons that teachers can actually have in their classrooms. I feel like they could be used for any teachers, and even having like the 700 views, it really, really feels like it touches me just because our name is out there, our project is out there. So I really, really feel extremely like grateful to be part of this challenge. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Leila. Ahmed?
I really liked how we started off this semester, having some clashes between us within the team because we're all having the different perspectives. And then I'm really happy to see like the outcome that we all reached a common ground and we learned how to use each of us his skills or knowledge or perspectives to do something that is how to say it, like good from many perspectives, and we reached a good outcome, thankfully. So that was great.
Thank you, Ahmed. That's a good comment, and it's interesting to see how team dynamics can be built as you you are given a team, because we form teams thinking, well, these people will be great together, and there's a multiplicity of disciplines that fit well, but how your team forms is really up to you. So that, what you're describing is exactly that process. So thank you for that comment. Philippe?
Yeah, to follow up with Ahmed, I really like reflecting on how could we use everyone's strength and bringing 5 students that doesn't know anything about a specific subject and trying to connect the dots. And especially being in an unstructured way. Like I've never ever had to go to someone and say, hey, is this okay? Or I mean, like you said at the beginning, you can do whatever you want and you think about it. And this is what I like. I hate it when there's like a certain guideline or something. And I think it really like made it more interesting for me to navigate into this this unknown. And for the question of Joël, for ourselves with the mentors, yeah, I mean it's probably different from the other team, but we should have had a more structured with mentoring, like I mean, at the end, they gave us an algorithm that they wanted to work in, which we didn't have time to put on. And I think their timeline should have been a bit more conscious of our own innovation lab like aspect, because it felt like there were 2 completely different aspects. Innovation lab with what do I have to deliver in 1 week and what do I'm saying to Ariel, and then which was like disconnected. So maybe this could be I don't know. I don't think it applied to you maybe, but for the AI, yes.
Thanks, Philippe. Maybe just for people who haven't seen that question in the chat, I'm just gonna, and then we can go over to you, Natasha. But Joel was asking, I'd be interested in hearing student views on the role of mentors, as the mentors aren't really involved with the other challenge teams. And specifically, he's hoping to learn how to be a better mentor. And thank you, Philippe. Go ahead, Natasha.
For our group, we actually had Joel as mentor, but I really appreciated like the consistency of our meetings. So we met with our mentor once a week, and he was especially like useful to us during the beginning because we were very lost and there was that initial confusion and like insecurity. So really pointing us in a good direction. He also helped with like connections too for interviews. All around great. So yeah, Joel, you did a great job. And yeah, and I think like we were talking about staying in touch even afterwards to see how this project continues. So yeah, I think we had like a pretty good, we were pretty lucky in that respect. So yeah, helped a lot. Thank you, Joel.
So
thanks, Tash. Do you want to go? Oh, go ahead, Anne-Louise.
Kelly had her hand up. I'm just going to hand over my computer to.
Yeah, I'm in the same group as well. So just to add on to what Tash said, I think from our group's perspective, especially with our goal being to develop a mentorship framework, it was nice to have that mentor relationship and to kind of be able to see which aspects of mentorship, our personal mentorship relationship, we could incorporate into our project as well. So it's nice that dynamic as well from our team.
Parker. No, that has to turn on.
I was just gonna say one of the key things our mentor did is like bring us back when we lost steam every week. Every meeting, it was just a pep talk, and there's so many good things, but the biggest key was how excited he was in the project. Kept us super excited. Otherwise, I think we would have lost a lot of steam throughout the semester after just the work piles up. but their enthusiasm really triggered Justin's enthusiasm triggered our enthusiasm, which is huge.
I'm muted. Thank you, Parker. Is there anybody else who would like to comment?
I guess for the Makerspace team, we have 3 different mentors from 3 different backgrounds. I feel like with the meetings and everything with them, I feel like every single time that we did meet, it was very, we learned quite a lot from the first meeting with Anne-Louise and talking to her about what a project could look like and really taking into consideration instructables. I really feel like that's where our brain cells and our creative juices came into like play, to know like, okay, what activities could we make into a lesson for students, no matter the age group, to actually enjoy themselves, but also to learn, like gain a rapport with STEM concepts, whether it be science, engineering, mathematics, or even technology. And I really feel like that helped us a lot, learning like how to step outside of our comfort zone and how to like really truly see what is going on when a student is not involved or interested in STEM concepts. And I really feel like our feedback that we got not too long ago from Anne-Louise and like her telling me or telling my team that we did an excellent job, I feel like that was a good conclusion, just making sure that we are on the right path and that we clearly understood where we were going and how we were able to like truly finish this off. So I really feel like having a mentor by our side was really, really important. And it made sure that we were going down the right path. So yeah, that's for my comment.
Thank you, Lena. So Joel is mentioning that creative confidence seems to be key for these challenges, as well as for learners of all ages and levels. And I think one of the major question is always, how do we prepare ourselves to innovate? And there will always be this weird feeling when we don't quite know, we don't quite have the expertise to get into an innovation process. We don't quite know what's going to happen because there's no plan that's laid out before us. So it's not like a project sheet, and this is the task that you need to do, and you have to have these components and all of that. Once it's done, it should be packaged in 15 pages with an introduction, a conclusion, and a sample prototype. When you get into an innovation process, it gets much larger than that, and the feeling of not knowing, insecurity, is what we can hone through the lab experience as we build the creative confidence of students, and as they become skilled with a variety of as they develop a variety of essential skills that are necessary to get into a process of innovation, and also through the systemic design process that we use inside the lab. We're approaching the end. Ariel, did you want to say something about the call that we have out for the Winter Innovation Challenges? And I'll put the link in.
I just shared the link while you were talking.
Okay.
And I clarified that it's not a competition, in case anyone was still wondering. So there's 4 challenges again, starting in January 6th. The application is open until December 25th. So I shared the link to the challenge descriptions, and I'm going to put it up also on the Innovation Lab website later this week. And some of the challenges are continuing in a slightly different form, but most of them are new. So yeah, I look forward to people applying, and please feel free to share it with other people if you know that they might be interested. Thanks so much.
Okay, and Louise, I guess I'll say a few words of thanks and goodbye. Yeah, awesome. Well, Thanks and goodbye. No, just kidding. We really wanted to congratulate all of the students. Fantastic work, like really exceptional. I was just flabbergasted watching these presentations at what you've been able to accomplish working together in collaboration this way. And a shout out to all of your mentors. I see Joel's in the audience amongst others, and it's just so great to read so many supportive comments from you, and I'm sure the students all appreciate it as well. And Louise and Ariel, always a pleasure to work with you. Thank you for coming into the space, and the the students who joined us in person as well. Thanks so much. It's been a pleasure having you here. Everybody who's joined us online, it's been great to have this moment with you. And those of you watching on YouTube, thanks so much for tuning in. And you can rewatch any of these presentations because they're now on our YouTube channel. So if you can't find it, just look up Concordia University Fourth Space on YouTube, and it's the first video you'll see there. All right, folks, we're going to close up. Enjoy the rest of your day, and until next time, congrats again. Ciao. Bye.